Hi, how you doing? My name is Jonathan Stone, doing the speech on alcohol and the bad influences you make while you're under the influence of alcohol. Alcohol is a substance that many Americans consume at your sporting events, going to football games, baseball games, and any social events. And a lot of Americans do it for fun and enjoyment, and it is one thing that you can enjoy. Unfortunately, taking part in this act a lot of times leads to bad decision making and other things that can affect what you're going to do in later parts of that day and later parts of your life. Alcohol is a psychoactive drug that is a depressant, has a depressant effect on your body, which a lot of people know, but they still choose to consume alcohol when they are depressed or when something's going wrong in their life, which is probably not the best choice most of the time. The main points that I'm going to go through in the speech, the leading cause that Americans have Americans dying in relation to consuming alcohol is when they make the decision to drink and drive. Then mainly focusing on the male gender, the being under the influence of alcohol has a really bad effect on sexual encounters between the two different sexes. And then lastly, we're going to go over the verbal and physical reactions that alcohol has an influence on your body and how you react to others while you're intoxicated. One of the most ironic things that I think is in our society today is that we have bars where you can drive to the bar, consume alcohol, drink alcohol, and then you get back in your vehicle and you go on with the rest of your day. Our government tries to enforce laws and regulations to not drink and drive, but yet every day we have Americans that go into bars, consume alcohol, sometimes more than they should be, sometimes not as, not all that much, but they still get in their vehicles and they drive to wherever they have to go afterwards. And some of the facts on drinking and driving are that over 40% of fatal automobile accidents are in relation to alcohol consumption. And then about 30% of Americans at some point in their lives will be involved in an accident that is related to alcohol being consumed. I think some of the easiest ways to prevent drinking and driving, ahead of time, you can plan, have a designated driver before you go out. You can always call a taxi, and that's one thing that you can never have an excuse. You can always call a taxi to take you somewhere instead of driving your own vehicle. And then there's even organizations out there like AAA that in some circumstances will even pay for your taxi ride home. So those are always ways to prevent drinking and driving. Let's move on to the effects of alcohol in relations to the two different sexes and sexual encounters. It's estimated that every 2 minutes in America, someone will be sexually abused. And now the focus mainly a lot of times is on the male to female sexual abusement. But as we all know that that's not always the case, and that alcohol affects your judgment and affects everything to have to do with that, and it's something that in a sexual way it affects all of us Americans. Last year it was found that 32% of sexual violent crimes in America had to do with the consumption of alcohol. So 32% of the times that there was a sexual act and it was committed as a crime, alcohol was consumed. And then you have your date rape drugs that, when mixed with alcohol, are even more dangerous to somebody than just consuming alcohol themselves. So there's a lot of things out there when consuming alcohol and the interactions with others, especially in a sexual way, that is very dangerous to us as Americans. Then moving from the sexual encounterments that we have when consuming alcohol, you also have your verbal and physical abuse that not necessarily in a sexual manner, that plays a big factor, I think, when us as Americans get intoxicated. Everybody is affected differently when consuming alcohol. Some people not affected as much, some people affected emotionally more, some people mentally more. But one of the most common things that are found when under the influence of alcohol is being short-tempered. And that, when you're out at the bar, somebody may say something and you're just short-tempered about it, it gets you fired up, you're not in the right frame of mind, your judgment's not there completely. And it was reported that last year, over 40% of violent crimes, violent acts, had to do with alcohol being involved. So to me, that's really an alarming number, and it really proves that alcohol has a huge effect on violent acts and arguments and that type of thing. Being under the influence can affect the way that you treat others, and it can affect the way that you react to arguments and confrontations. Sometimes they can escalate a lot quicker when you're intoxicated. And all these things can be avoided if you learn to control the way you consume your alcohol, and if you do it under a controlled environment and you realize the environment that you're in and everything like that, and you're not taking everything for granted, that nothing's going to happen to you, you're not going to be sexually abused, you're not going to be you're not going to drink and drive, all those types of things. If you know that before going out there and you're aware of your surroundings and everything like that, it should help you into trying to prevent some of these things from happening. One of the things that is a really good example of how I've seen this in my own personal life, one of my coworkers, his brother-in-law was in a car accident while he was drinking and driving. He's now in a wheelchair. He's paralyzed from the hips down. He has a feeding tube to be able to eat every day, and his speech is very disoriented. You can barely understand what he's saying, and that's one of the effects that alcohol can have on you in a very negative way. And this is something that man has to live with for the rest of his life, and it will affect him for the rest of his life. Luckily for him, he didn't lose his life, which happens very often. It's something that happens every day, but he now has to live like that for the rest of his life. And if he would have made one different decision, maybe it would have changed his life forever. That's my speech. Thank you.
Nice job, John.
Which one?